Melania Trump is in her working mom era. The First Lady appeared on Capitol Hill this week to show support for the Take It Down Act, an act that is specifically designed to tackle one of the modern day challenges the internet has brought us: revenge corn. I don't know if the platforms let me say the real word or not. But Melania has had a history of advocating for increased protections, especially for minors who are on the internet. So it seems like it's in her repertoire, but obviously Barron Trump has left home. And so this is her first major policy move during the Trump 2.0 administration. I'm excited to see what she does. Let's talk about what happened. The Take It Down Act would criminalize sharing intimate photos of anyone without their consent. While leading a roundtable discussion on the bill in Washington, D.C., Mrs. Trump delivered some really eloquent remarks talking about the long-term impact of people who are subject to this kind of violation. She specifically referenced a student whose classmates had used AI to create images, intimate images of her. Obviously, they're not real. They're created with AI and distributed them. The images were ultimately viewed around the world, and it took a very long time and a lengthy battle to get the platforms involved to remove the images. I think that Melania Trump has always demonstrated an interest in the well-beings of young people. I don't know if this particular bill caught her attention because of her own experience raising a teenager and so fiercely advocating for Barron's privacy, or because of her experience as a model. I mean, she was a young woman coming up in an industry that depends on photography. I suspect she's had to have many conversations about privacy and violations and go over her own values. I mean, we've seen her style become more modest and conservative. So this seems like a natural fit for her. She referenced her Be Best campaign. I think this is, again, kind of a natural fit to improve the lives of young people. There isn't an age limit on this bill, but obviously it seems like the most common group affected are younger Americans who are more prone to being online or to connecting with one another in a digital way. I think we should listen to a couple of Melania Trump's remarks. She is very passionate about this issue. That was the main takeaway from her opening statement.
Good afternoon. I'm here with you today with a common goal: to protect our youth from online harm. The widespread presence of abusive behavior in the digital domain affects the daily lives of our children, families, and communities. Addressing this issue is essential for fostering a safe and supportive environment for our young people. I hope today's roundtable builds awareness of the harm caused by non-consensual intimate imagery, and eventually the approval of the Take It Down Act bill in Congress. In today's AI-driven world, the threat of privacy breaches is alarmingly high. As organizations harness the power of our data, the risk of unauthorized access and misuses of personal information escalates. We must prioritize robust security measures and uphold strict ethical standards to protect individual privacy. As First Lady, my commitment to the Be Best initiative underscores the importance of online safety. In an era where digital interactions are integral to daily life, it is imperative that we safeguard children from mean-spirited and hurtful online behavior. Ensuring their protection is not just a responsibility, but a vital step in nurturing tomorrow's leaders. It's heartbreaking to witness young teens, especially girls, grappling with the overwhelming challenges posed by malicious online content, like deepfakes. This toxic environment can be severely damaging. We must prioritize their well-being by equipping them with support and tools necessary to navigate this hostile digital landscape. Every young person deserves a safe online space to express themselves freely without the looming threat of exploitation or harm. To the brave survivors of NCII, your strength inspires the courage in others.
Senator Ted Cruz of Texas sponsored the bill in the Senate. He's also the father of teenage daughters. I'm not sure what kind of conversations he as a parent has had to have about digital safety. He delivered his own remarks in support of Melania Trump, who he was seated next to at the roundtable discussion.
If you're a victim of revenge porn or AI-generated explicit imagery, your life changes forever. Most likely you've been targeted by someone you know, and you're likely struggling to have that material removed from the internet. Disturbingly, many of these victims are teenagers at American high schools who are facing a surge in AI-generated sexual images. Hundreds of teens, often targeted by their own classmates, are enduring senseless psychological harm, knowing that these fake images exist and they're still out there. And in many cases, there's no recourse for these teenage victims. But this issue extends beyond high school. There are thousands of cases where predators have used non-consensual intimate images to extort victims, both sexually and financially. And the results can be even more traumatic than financial loss.
In a press release provided by the White House, Cruz said, "For victims of revenge or AI-generated explicit imagery, life can change instantly and permanently. Everyone has the right to have these disturbing images removed from the internet immediately. The bipartisan Take It Down Act empowers victims across the United States, and I'm honored that First Lady Melania Trump has lent her strong voice to the cause. Her presence and advocacy are driving real action for teens and children, and her support will be crucial in advancing this bill." The Take It Down Act was passed with 100% support in the Senate. All 100 members of that chamber voted in favor of this piece of legislation. You can look it up. It's S146 in that chamber. As I mentioned, Republican from Texas, Ted Cruz, was the sponsor. There are 10 other Republican co-sponsors in the Senate, and then there are 11 Democratic co-sponsors. It has equal bipartisan support. And that bipartisan support is funny. First Lady Melania Trump pointed out in her remarks, none of the Democratic senators came to the roundtable discussion on this bill. Doesn't that seem kind of political to you?
Surely, as adults, we can prioritize Americans' children ahead of partisan politics.
This is a bill that's designed to help people who are being exploited by violations online. The chamber 100% supports it, and none of them would come to the roundtable discussions. To me, that feels like it's putting partisan politics over the welfare of the American people. Would they have come if First Lady Jill Biden had been there? I don't always understand why Melania Trump is such a taboo person for so many people. Obviously, I understand that she's married to President Donald Trump. People don't like him, but she's constantly criticized for not being enough of her own person. Or there were all these headlines this week that she hasn't been seen in like 18 days and kind of trying to make it out as if she's oppressed or kept to the side or she's avoiding her husband. And then she does something really important. She gets behind a policy that I think would make a big difference as we progressively increase our internet usage and get our, minor children involved in it. I'm referring to online school here. Kids are introduced to the internet earlier and earlier in this modern age, and she is taking steps to back efforts to protect them. And the Democrats who have already voted in favor of this bill in the Senate can't even come to this roundtable discussion. I mean, I guess they could be busy doing other things, but still, it seems a little bit obvious what their issue is. And again, don't say, oh, we want to work together if you're not willing to come to some of these events. The bill will now be transferred to the House of Representatives, where a companion piece of legislation has already been introduced. That's H.R. 633. It's being sponsored by Republican from Florida, Maria Elvira Salazar, but it has an equal number of Republican and Democratic sponsors in total. I suspect this bill will pass, although, of course, you have to read through it carefully and make sure nothing's being tacked on. This is something I think Thomas Massie is very famous for, and rightly so. He is good at catching where things have snuck in. But I think a lot of people can understand why bills like this become necessary. As we progress into a more AI-dominated cyberspace, there are just questions and gray areas that we're going to have to navigate through. The issues of exploitative images, especially those that are fake. It's one thing if your intimate photos are shared online without your consent. That's awful. It seems almost worse to me if the images are created by AI without your consent and then distributed with no way for you to have any kind of recourse. Introducing some type of recourse seems like a positive change. If the federal government is supposed to help us, it seems like this is one of the ways that it could potentially use its power for good. I wonder how people will react to Melania Trump becoming involved. There are other organizations that have already backed the Take It Down Act, and I suspect that they won't withdraw it. On the other hand, I don't know that all organizations will thank Melania for becoming involved. Which kind of brings me to the best question of the Trump administration, or at least my favorite question. What is Melania Trump's legacy going to be? I mean, so much of her first term in 2016 to 2020 was sort of shaped by her role as an active mother, right? She had a child in school. I think Barron Trump was still in middle school during his time in the White House, maybe halfway through high school by the end. And now Barron's gone to college. I used to say this. I did a video a couple weeks ago on inauguration fashion, and Melania Trump's style is much more business, right? Like, this roundtable discussion was the third or fourth public event where she's opted to wear a suit. Looks great, by the way. I'm not always a fan of women in suits. Sometimes I think they can look a little cosplay, but obviously she's extremely beautiful. Melania Trump seems to be signaling, look, my kid has left the home. I was actively with him as much as I could be while he was in the nest. And now that he's out of the nest, I am going to step into a more public spotlight and really address some of the things I'm concerned about. And a lot of it really does have to do with the welfare of America's young people. And I think that's great. There was a lot of outrage when a lot of young men, especially in swing states, supported President Donald Trump during the last election. But it really seems like President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump are the young people's choice in a way that Kamala Harris didn't really seem to naturally inspire on her own. She courted young people by using their lingo, brat summer, their memes, but it seems like the Trumps seem to almost connect with young people more on the things that they're concerned about. I mean, you saw this with Donald Trump when he went on Theo Vaughn's podcast and talked about addiction and concerns about the welfare and the future of people in America. You see this with Melania Trump, who really does seem to prioritize what's going on online for young people. Now, I want to be clear. It's not that this is necessarily a completely perfect bill. I encourage everyone to read through it with a free speech lens in mind, with a personal responsibility lens in mind, with a small government lens in mind. But I think this type of action is sort of the natural outcome of an increasingly AI-dominated world. I think we need to recognize that people who are abused by this type of technology need a pathway forward, and that those who create this technology or those who create these images should be held accountable. So much of the legislation that involves the internet is just like, oh, we don't know how to regulate that. We don't know what to do. We don't know what kind of protections we offer you. We don't really know how your rights apply to the situation because the internet develops so quickly. I like that Melania Trump, with all of her interest in Bitcoin and NFTs and stuff like that, is also turning her attention to mixing her passion for protecting America's young with her interest in technology. So I think this is a great fit for her. We'll have to see how this progresses or if any sneaky amendments are tacked onto it. But keep an eye on this bill and keep an eye on Melania Trump. Is there something you would like to see her do? She is operating as though this is a part of the Be Best campaign. And, I'm not saying it's not, but I would be curious to know if you're a fan of having the First Lady's point of advocacy be about digital safety for children. It's unique. I mean, I don't know that any other First Lady has had to deal with this before. A lot of them take a family-centric approach, or like Michelle Obama's was about nutrition. But this really does seem like a cultural moment or an of this kind of time problem. So again, let me know what you think of Melania, and especially let me know what you think of her suit. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a great week. I'm going to try and start getting more consistent, have my videos up Fridays at 3 o'clock. Again, thanks for all of you who have subscribed, who have been watching me develop on this journey. I promise I'll decorate my bookshelf soon. I can't wait to hear what you guys think of the Take It Down Act, and I'll see you guys next week.